Happy Thanksgiving, everybody, and welcome to Brandon's Face. It's the podcast about a playlist. My name is Jonathan Beardsley, and as always, I'm joined by the man who single-handedly crashed Ticketmaster by trying to sell 3.5 billion tickets to the new Taylor Swift tour. It's Brandon May. Brandon, I hope you're doing well this evening.
Thank you. Yes, I am. I'm the one with the $28,000 ticket up on Ticketmaster. I'd really like it if somebody could pay my mortgage for a long time. So somebody buy
You're
it.
not paying your mortgage with all the Nikes you're reselling with your bots?
For the record, everybody listening, I don't do any of these things.
Yeah, for the record, he does. But before we get started on our weekly music review, I want to briefly talk to you about the Ticketmaster fiasco because I think it's worth the conversation, even beyond just Taylor Swift. When Ticketmaster and Live Nation merged, they took control of over 70% of the ticket market in the country, effectively creating a monopoly. The merger should have never been allowed to go through, but since it has, and this is the world we're living in, how do you see things playing out going forward?
The reality is that these types of publicly traded, massive international conglomerates will only respond if people use the market the way that it is. If people stop giving Ticketmaster their money, if Taylor Swift did not sell as many tickets, if she didn't sell out every night, if she even was like 75% of all of her stops, Ticketmaster would take notice.
Yeah.
The reality is that even with regulation, a lot of people don't remember one of the major antitrust regulations and inquiries was Standard Oil. And Standard Oil made a lot of money from being broken up. And it's the same thing that's going to happen with Ticketmaster. It's going to be the same company, just Ticketmaster Los Angeles, Ticketmaster Portland. It's going to be the same shit. And they're still going to charge their ridiculous, erroneous, and just ridiculous fees.
Stupid fees, yeah.
Yeah, so the only way to shove it in Ticketmaster's face is to stop going to the shows. All it would take is 6 months. We know that they just were hit with a massive pandemic, and they probably don't have a whole lot of working capital, right?
I agree. Yeah.
Just stop going to their shows.
Yeah. I think that one thing is clear. It's they don't need to be charging the fees that they do to stay operational and make a healthy profit without the threat of actual competition. And this isn't just a years old problem. This is a decades old problem. Coachella was literally started because it was on land that was outside of the current ticketing system's control at the time.
Yep.
But like all things, it went from being counterculture to being popular culture to being the exact thing that it was created to oppose. So it's hard to be optimistic about any solution not eventually turning into the exact same situation we're currently living in. But this is a holiday. Brandon's Face is a glass half full kind of podcast, so we're going to hope for the best from this.
I have one more thing to say on this.
Yeah, touch on it.
We have an arena opening up in Palm Desert, California, called the Acrisure Arena, and it is set to be awesome, except it is a Live Nation venue. I found this out very recently because I was talking to somebody at work, and they were like, "Oh, who's playing at that spot?" And I was like, "Oh, the Eagles are playing." And they were like, "Oh yeah, how much are tickets? I might want to actually go to that." And I kind of made fun of him a little bit, but but I looked it up. To get pit tickets or close to the stage tickets for the Eagles, just give me a wild guess, John. How much do you think those tickets cost?
I'm gonna say $750 before fees.
$1,837 plus fees.
God, I wonder how much Lizzo's going for. Jesus Christ!
I actually looked it up, and it shows how much the artists actually have more control over it. All of her pit tickets are $249. All of the other tickets are $149 for Lizzo, which is super fair. I think I'd pay $250 to go see Lizzo.
Stan a queen.
Exactly.
Yeah, man. That's fucking awesome. I hope that the venue turns out to be good despite its Live Nation ties. I hope it draws in some good shows that you're able to eventually get tickets to.
Right? I agree. I think it should be very interesting.
But in the meantime, support your local venues. Buy tickets directly from them whenever possible. See smaller artists in general. I'm talking to everybody, not just you.
No, for sure.
Uh, like I know it feels like you'll be missing out by not being at a concert, but there will be others, people. Like trust me. I've felt the FOMO before and I've lived to tell the story. You'll be okay. And really quickly before we get into things, if you guys like what you hear, please follow along wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, please like the video, smash that subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you want to talk to us on the internet, you can find us on Instagram and Reddit. Just search Brandon's face. We're debating having a Twitter, but that's like buying a ticket to the Titanic post iceberg. So we're waiting on that for now. We also ask that you follow along with the playlist this podcast is based on if you want to be familiar with what we will be talking about every week. The link is in the show notes below. With all of that out of the way, are you ready to talk about some music, Brandon?
Yeah, man, this is a fun week. Let's get into it.
It is. First up this week, we have a new one I've really been enjoying from Romy of the XX that is co-produced by Fred again and Stuart Price called Strong. How are you feeling about this one?
It's a great track, man. I love the synths that he's been using.
Yeah, I think the production and vocals on this one are really good, very reminiscent of Above and Beyond. I'm actually surprised this track was not released on Anjuna Beats, but anyways, big fan of this one.
Yep.
Next up, we have a pretty unique collaboration between Memba and Elohim called Mirrors. What are your thoughts on this one?
The bass line on this is fucking great. Elohim's vocals are also great. I was a big fan of this song, man. What did you think?
Oh man, I liked this one. Elohim always sounds great on beats like this.
Yep, it seems like tailor made for her, and I think
Exactly.
I don't know a lot about Memba. Who's Memba? Should I know Memba?
I don't know a lot about Memba either, but great track. So maybe we should give
Yep.
them a follow and see what else they've released.
Yeah, let's. I'll be diving in a little bit.
All right, man. Next up is Rabbit Hole by Leighton Giordani, Hilo, and Oliver Heldens. A song that I think is fine, but I also can't stand because there's this tiny decay effect in it that makes me think I have water in my headphones, making them fuck up, and I hate it. But props to them for using a Matrix sample, I guess.
I know.
How are you feeling about this one?
I actually thought it was very interesting to see both Oliver Heldens and Hilo on a techno track. Kind of out of their wheelhouse a little bit. They normally do like deep and future house, so this was welcome. I liked it. It's techno.
Yeah. Okay. It has been a while since we've heard some Adam Beyer on the playlist. Up next, we have a remix he did alongside an artist that I've never heard of called Webba for a song called In From the Night by an artist named Planetary Assault Systems.
Yep.
I don't know any of the names involved on this one other than Adam Beyer, but I like it. How are you feeling about it?
I just could not help myself by throwing this on, man. I heard it as it dropped, and I was like, "Oh yeah, this is a set closer if I've ever heard one." It's heavy, synthy, it's bassy, it's groovy, top tier from everybody involved.
Hard agree.
I have never heard of Planetary Assault Systems, but I have heard and listened to a couple of mixes from Webba. I believe a UK-based techno producer, and I really like it. I really like all of this. This was great.
Yeah, I enjoyed it as well. Okay, up next we have a new one from Opio called Battle Cat that he made for a compilation called 20 Years of Muti. Muti? I'm not sure how you pronounce that. It's a bass heavy electro house track that's equal parts fun and trippy. I like it. Are you enjoying this new one from Opio as well?
Yeah, man, I really like Opio. This is a bop for me. The way he kind of bleeds the bass lines in, just I don't know, man. It just works for me.
Yeah, I dig it. Moving on, we have a new one called Epica Extension from an artist named Jean-Michel Jarre featuring Brian Eno, but I'm guessing this track's authenticity, like I'm questioning it since I don't hear Brian Eno on it, unless he co-produced this. Either way, I'm not really sure how I feel about it. What are your thoughts on this? Is this a real song?
Do you know anything about Jean-Michel Jarre? I think that's how you pronounce it.
No,
He's
not at
French.
all. So enlighten me.
French producer, and I think he's done some scores and some composing and stuff like that.
Okay.
Kind of a legend in the France early electronic scene. Like I'm talking early '90s and stuff. Yeah, man. So Jar released an album, I think, last week or so. And this is actually a rework of one of those tracks. And he wanted to work with Eno because Eno is also a legend in the ambient world. And so I listened to both of them. Maybe I should have added both of them on. But you can definitely, if you listen to both of them, you can definitely hear Eno's kind of ambient background stuff that he does so well.
For sure. I'll throw that other one on my listen to next.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty neat. It's
Yeah, I thought it was neat. It's just I was so thrown off because like everything I hear Brian Eno, especially the last thing of his we covered, was literally just vocals.
right.
So I was like, is this real? But okay, that explains a lot.
The man is an enigma. You know, funny. I went to my local record store and finally grabbed myself a Brian Eno record.
What one?
Shit, I forgot. I threw it in the case and I've been busy, but
Into the endless sea of Brandon's vinyl collection.
it might be music for airports. I could be wrong though. I
Gotcha.
walked in and he knows me as the Brian Eno guy because every time I would walk in, I'd say, "Hey, you got any Eno?" Because I know that somebody's gonna throw away some Eno and they don't know who he is or something, or they're gonna inherit a collection and go whatever. And their shit's expensive. So
Yep.
I walked in one day. He was like, "I got Eno," and I was like, "Yes, let's see it." He hadn't priced it yet, and I was like, "All right, let's go. Let's do it."
My man. That's awesome, dude. I love that you're known as the Eno guy at your local record store.
Yeah, he was actually pretty cool, man. I actually found he let me into the back, and I found a copy, an original European pressing of Fear Factory's first album, which is pretty highly sought
Oh
after.
shit.
And
That's
I
awesome.
was kind of hoping he didn't know what he had, but Homeboy knew exactly what he had. And I
Yep,
did
I'm
not
sure.
leave with that record because he was like, "Well, I could probably do 250," and I was like, "Yep, nope."
Nope. Those are not numbers I like to hear. All right, man. Briefly moving into the R&B lane, we have a new one from Kalila called On the Run that comes along with an album announcement and description. Her new album, Raven, is scheduled to be released February 10th. Her press release reads, I started this process from feeling the isolation and alienation I've always had as a black femme in dance music, despite its black origins. Raven is my first breath taken in the dark, an affirmation of black femme perspective in the midst of a systemic erasure and the sound of our vulnerability turned to power. What are your thoughts on this track, and what is your level of anticipation for the album after hearing her statement on it?
That sounds fucking awesome. I might have gotten chills a little bit. That's fucking sick, man. I love this track, man. It's dark, it's sultry, fantastic vocals. Big fan.
Yeah, she killed this one. Love it. Very excited for that album.
Yep.
Now briefly moving into the hip hop category, we have a new one from Absol called Gangnam that also comes along with an album announcement. His new album Herbert drops December 16th. I'm not really feeling this song, so my anticipation for that album isn't very high, even though I know Absol is a very talented rapper capable of making incredible music. I'm just a little confused about what Top Dog is doing. They just said that SZA is expected to drop an album next month. Now they want their most anticipated post Kendrick release to share promo space with another one of their artists instead of trying to follow up on it with the momentum that it would create. All of that aside, though, even though I didn't really like this song, it felt like one you might feel differently about than me. Are you any more excited about this album than I am after hearing this?
And no, man, I actually I remember liking the first single a lot.
Yeah.
But this feels like so forced with how slow and restrained it is. It feels like he recorded his vocals and then they were like, let's take it down both an octave and a little bit of tempo. Just feels, and there's like some weak rhymes. I don't know. I like the last single like a lot better. But to mention to comment on what TDE is doing, they're doing the DC thing, bro. Batman was just wildly successful in the 90s. And then Marvel came on the scene, and then DC panicked and put out movies with Batfleck and the Justice League, which I've seen 3 times, couldn't tell you the plot. So they're panicking, and they're like, okay, we'll release everything that we have.
That's an interesting way of thinking about it. Yeah, I could see that. Absol's been gone just as long, if not longer, than SZA, so I feel like he should have his own time for his release to shine, and I feel like it's going to be overshadowed,
Yeah.
even though they're different genres.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, we will.
I am very curious about this release. So we'll see what the album holds, and we'll go from there.
It will be a very TDE Christmas this year. On to a little indie pop now. We have a new one from Tennis off their upcoming album, Pollen, called One Night with the Valet. Talk to me about this one.
They just have a way of making music that just hits me differently, man. The synths they use on this one are awesome. Track is a little short, but we'll see how the album goes. I think it's announced for February 10th.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, the track is too short. This sounds like someone smashed the Marias and Magdalena Bay together. So yeah, I like this song. It's easily my favorite track of theirs that I've heard, and I'm excited for the album.
yeah, we'll see. We don't normally get tracks so short like this, so I'm from them, so I'm curious. We'll
Yeah,
see what
hopefully it's
happens.
not a fucking Brockhampton length album or something.
Maybe it's an
All right,
intro.
we'll get into
We'll
that.
we'll get into some Brockhampton.
Next up, we have a new one from Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness called
Yes.
VHS that turned me instantly into the Vince McMahon meme. We have Andrew McMahon singing the words VHS tape over his trademark alternative indie sound. It just checks all the boxes. I imagine it did that for you as well.
He just makes good music, man. I don't. There's just like an endless sea of tracks that he's been involved in, from something corporate to Jack's Mannequin to this new project, and I give me inject it into my veins, man. Like it's just so
Yep.
good.
And he is doing 15% off his merch store for Black Friday, everyone.
Yes,
So
that's
hit
right. You sent
that
that
up.
to me.
I did. I did. I don't think I sent you that there was a coupon, but I think it said it on there
Yeah, it
somewhere.
did. It did.
All right, man. Next up, we have a new one from the always fun Fiddler. I like this one. Still no new album announcement, but I'm enjoying these singles as they release them. How are you feeling about this one?
I would be very surprised if this wasn't on a full project, but yeah, I have a weird feeling I'm gonna like whatever project comes out of this. Love the album art on this, just a busted up ATM. Big fan
Yeah,
of
that's
that.
great.
Big
Good
fan.
shit. Good shit. Yeah, I think we'll get something early next year.
Yeah, we'll see.
Moving on, we have a new one from Korn and Health featuring Danny Brown and Michi Darko called Worst is on Its Way. And after hearing it, I can't say the song was not trying to warn me. I did not enjoy this at all. Dude, just industrial rap rock is just not for me. Did you enjoy this one?
No. Oh
Okay.
man, I threw this on here just because of how fucking weird it is. Corn, Health, Danny Brown. Like it just seems like so far out of left field, man. It kind of took me back a little bit to when they released, I think it was Paradigm Shift, back in 2012, 2013. And I saw them that year, and they played a couple tracks from that album. And I know specifically they played the Skrillex feature. Everybody was into the set. Everybody was bopping and jumping, and a bunch of people were singing along. And then they dropped that Skrillex thing, and everybody they got booed. I thought that was funny. I wonder how it would go off if Korn played this one live. I've never really been able to get into Danny Brown's vocals, man. Everybody tells me I'm missing some of the best bars out there, but I just can't get into them, man.
It's an acquired taste for sure. Um, yeah, man. I think just Corn and Health would have been fine. I think
Right.
their sounds might have meshed well. I just don't think the vocals worked for me on this one at all.
Super agree.
Next up, we have a new track called Masters of Morbidity from what is it? Morbidity.
Morbidity.
Morbidity from a band named 200 Stab Wounds. Talk to me about this one, Brandon.
So this is a band that's kind of been on my radar. I've listened to a couple of tracks from them, but I haven't like dived in. I've been seeing their name around, and lo and behold, they released this song, and I believe they are I think they're planning for a new album because they just signed to Metal Blade Records. So they're going to get some Metal Blade production. So it's going to be nice and punchy as we are used to. I do like this track. It's got real early Corpse Grinder Cannibal Corpse energy to it. So I liked it. What did you think?
Yeah, I surprisingly liked this one as well, man. It's a batshit crazy song with a lot going on, but part of its charm is how raw and underproduced it is. This
Yep.
is exactly how music like this should sound.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
Okay, last single for the week is a new one from Obituary called The Wrong Time. What are your thoughts on this new one from them?
You can tell his voice is failing a little bit, kind of like Homeboy from At the Gates. I mean, they've been at it since the late '80s, so
Hmm.
you can't really fault him for that one. I like this track. I'm excited to hear what the album sounds like. I think it drops on the 13th of January. It's called "Dying of Everything," which is
Yes.
honestly a great album name.
Yeah. We'll be reviewing that one. I think it's a good song. I think it's a bad mix. It sounds like I'm hearing it through a
That could be
cement
it.
wall.
That could be it.
Yeah, I don't know what went on there, but hopefully the album is mixed a little better.
We will see.
You ready to move on to the albums?
Yes, I'm actually very excited to move on to the albums.
All right, man. First up, we have two new albums from Brockhampton, The Family and TM. The Family is a Kevin Abstract solo album that occasionally features vocals from other members of the group. There's a few good tracks or ideas for tracks, but none of these songs feel like Brockhampton to me or even like complete songs. And as far as I understand it, TM is just an album made up of songs that were started by the group during a recording session in 2021, but never completed during that session.
Yep.
I found both of these albums to be mildly entertaining on the first listen, and I've had absolutely no desire to go back since. Kevin Abstract put it best on Gold Teeth when he says, "Did we sign for too many motherfucking albums? Probably." The Family and TM very much feel like records made to get out of a record deal, which is unfortunate because I was hoping for one more real Brockhampton record. I didn't hate all of it though. They interpolated the theme from all that on this
Yes.
album.
Yes.
So take that for what it's worth. It's just a bit disappointing and forgettable in the end, but I don't know. I'm gonna give both of these albums a five for me, and the only tracks I'd really recommend people check out are like Gold Teeth, all that, maybe Animal and New Shoes. I don't know. There's not a lot here for me. How did you feel about this one? What were your takeaways?
So I think part of the reason that these are so polarizing is because everybody listened to them at the same time back to back. I truly believe that has an effect on how people intake this media. I kind of want to talk about each one separately. So
Please.
I listened to The Family first. It has some real farewell vibes to it. Take It Back, gospel block party vibes to it. Love it. Fun, upbeat, energetic. The first time I heard all that, I was both surprised and kind of like not surprised. It fits very well with the vibe they were trying to curate. And that's the word I keep coming back to. It's fun. This album is not meant to be taken seriously. It's just fun. It's just here's the last of it. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
The record slows down a little bit. We get Back from the Road, but that's really just for a short time. And then it leads into Basement, which kind of brings back the energy. I think the Basement has some really funny lyrics. The whole album feels like a half-assed victory lap, and it also feels very final. I know that these are their last two albums, and it definitely feels like that. Feels like Kevin really was not taking himself too seriously while making what feels like an album that it feels like there was no effort put into this, right? I think it was a lot of fun to listen to, though. I actually listened to it twice. I probably won't go back to it. The track "The Family" is just drenched in irony, man. It's
Hmm.
satire, it's self depreciation, both as a band and an individual. I think last week I referred to someone to you. I was like, "Isn't this like a Kevin only track?" And I had heard somewhere that the next album was going to just be a Kevin only project, which is what this is. Look, man, I I actually enjoyed this. I also rated it a 5 though. I think it's one of those things where it's like I enjoyed it. I'm not going to go back to it, but it was fun, and I'm glad that they released something instead of just getting out of their contract. Uh,
I agree.
TM, I feel a lot of things about. Uh, this one feels like it was just slapped together, and definitely like what you said, this TM is how you get out of a contractual obligation. Oh, we have a bunch of shit recorded, don't we? Yeah, just throw it all on an album. Let's do some half-assed album art, and then let's go. Like
Yep.
that, like that's
Yep.
it. I gave TM a 4, man. I really did like the layered synths on Animals. I'm sorry, Animal. New Shoes does have some great chemistry and a pretty neat beat. I can tell by the time I got to Crucify Me that it was just not what anybody wanted, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I think what this is though is they called it an album to get out of their contract, but the reality is that this album TM is the deluxe edition to the band. And I think this is music that we were going to hear at one point. We just never did. And now we have, and now we say something about it. I liked New Shoes on this one. I gave this one a 4 out of 10. I didn't really like it as much as I
Yeah, I
liked
like New Shoes too.
Nice, nice. So those are my words. I told you I had some words for it.
They're an interesting piece of history in their discography. It's definitely not the way I hoped they would go out, but it is the way most boy bands go out, and they consider themselves a boy band. So, welcome to signing a horrible record deal, guys. You're officially a real boy band. All right, man. Let's talk some Royksopp. We
Okay,
got Profound Mysteries number 3. Did you do a track by track for this one?
I did not.
Okay, I did a track by track for
Let's
this
go. I'm
one.
so
So,
excited.
yeah, I'll dive right in, man. We start off with the So Ambiguous, which is just a beautiful orchestral track with some heartfelt vocals courtesy of Jamie Irrepressible that feels equal parts Final Fantasy and Klangstoff. It's a great way to open the album. From there, we move on to Me and Euphoria, which is a really fun trance-infused house track reminiscent of what was popular in the genre during the EDM boom of the early 2010s. Another good song. Stay a While is a good, if not slightly confusing track, starting off with the lyrics to Something About Us by Daft Punk was a weird choice for a song that I don't really think needed that interpolation to be good. But that said, it is a decent track. From there, we move on to The Night, which is awesome for a few reasons. First of all, it has vocals from Alison Goldfrapp, who has quickly become one of my favorite vocal collaborators of theirs. And second, it has this like modular beat reminiscent of Boys Noise that I wasn't expecting and I really liked. We got Lights Out, which is a nice little ambient respite before we get thrown full throttle into Speed King, which I will once again say needs to be in the next Gran Turismo game. And then we get another solid Jamie Irrepressible collaboration with the track The Next Day. Not the most exciting song, but not bad. I can forgive that song not being exciting though, because they followed it up with the incredible Just Wanted to Know. And then we get the semi-modular disco house track, Feel It, before the album closes with the more experimental Like an Old Dog, which I would have enjoyed a lot more without the words like an old dog repeating so annoyingly over some beautiful strings. Overall, man, I really enjoyed my time with this album. I'm going to give it an 8. It's a solid B plus album for me. And I'm going to say the trilogy as a whole is a resounding A. It was an ambitious undertaking to make this trilogy, and all of the time and effort that they put into it really paid off. We will be talking about them again in a few weeks for the best EDM albums of 2022 episode, so I'll save my remaining thoughts on them for that. Um, what are your thoughts on this one, man? Did the finale to the trilogy satisfy you?
In short, yes. In long, uh, this is obviously the third and final installment of the Profound Mysteries trilogy, and it's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what I expected after experiencing both 1 and 2. It is high art seen through an electronic dance lens. Now, with this, they really excel. One was a little bit more dancey, two was a little bit more jazzy, and three kind of splits the difference here because they've got this like really kind of art pop tech kind of vibe to it, and I fucking love it, man. Experimental textures melted into dreamy vocals while simultaneously just being drenched in strings and synths and bells and other instruments. Not all of this is danceable, but it's still dance music. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So Ambiguous starts off this record as an intro for both this record and a closer. I think a closing intro for the trilogy. It's all ambiguous. All of this trilogy has been ambiguous, and I kind of like that. This project kind of really shows off their ethereal tendencies and strengths and really highlights the artistic side of dance music, the strings throughout, the vocal performances, the atmosphere that they created. Absolutely beautiful, man. I gave it a 9. My standouts are both Speed King and Just Wanted to Know.
Hell yeah, man. I'm glad you liked the same ones I did. I thought this was great, man. It was a really good album.
Speed King was just on repeat all week, man.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal track. I fucking love that one. All right, man. Let's talk some Glitch Mob. They released their new album, Control Alt Reality, which I'm sure is going to be very divisive within the EDM community. So I want to know your thoughts on this one first.
Okay. First off, this doesn't really feel a whole lot like Glitch Mob. It does by the time I get to the end of the record. I listened to it a lot because it was kind of confusing. But look, a lot of fans of the Glitch Mob didn't really like See Without Eyes, as that was kind of a little bit of a stylistic departure from their previous work as well. It's like they wanted to completely reinvent the wheel that they designed. I don't think anybody needed to do that, but they did it. Look, there's some build-ups and there's some drum grooves that are reminiscent of what I'm used to from the Glitch Mob. But I understand, though, that this is, quote, a blade-free world, as Ed from the band has said. So I kind of went into this with apprehension, and I actually exited my listens of this album with a ton of appreciation for it. And some themes, there's some themes that I just personally don't like. The idea was to bring back old school rave culture in which it's about the music and not about the performance. Back in the 90s and the late 80s, DJs would not be the center of attention. They would be in the corner. You wouldn't know who was playing, and it was just house or techno or whatever, right? And that's kind of what they wanted to do. They're getting rid of their blade, and they're getting rid of their fancy performances, and they're just doing this thing. I think bringing that back is admirable, right? Wanting to create a project to kind of do that is admirable. However, I don't think they really needed to, man. There are these really corny chipmunk style chopped vocals throughout, which really seem unneeded and forced a little bit. There's like a lot of weird synth work that I just don't think needed to be there. All right, now that I've gone over what I don't like, here's what I do like about it. I like the drums. It's not the same as their previous stuff, but the drums on this record are certainly a highlight. The drums and percussion on Emotion and Anti-Real are really neat. Although there are some like weird dial-up noises and stuff I don't really think fits with the drums. All the People was kind of a great opening choice, and if I hadn't heard the singles, it would be a really great starting point for this record. It makes you kind of center yourself. Oh, that's what this is. I kind of wish they dropped this without dropping singles. Since I had heard the singles, the mystery was kind of taken away. It's like tracks like Cut Slope absolutely do it for me. It's fucking heavy, breakbeat, and then there's the fucking high-pitched chipmunk vocals that come in. It just takes away pretty much all of the magic for me. And they even have like regular vocals on this track around the 4-minute mark that like work so much better, man. On The Moment, we get some like old school late piano, like late 70s piano house beat. Really does it for me, man. The pitchy synths on Depth Charge are really neat and a great touch to this track. Overall, I think I liked this album, ? Maybe it'll grow on me. I don't know. It feels like on every track I was really getting into what I was hearing, and then I hear these fucking chipmunk ass vocals that just seem so out of place, man. And elements that I didn't like. Somehow I still ended up liking it enough to say that I did, I think. I don't know. I gave it a 5. My standout is All the People or Dream Roller. Both of those songs were mostly good. What did you think about this new Glitch Mob Control Alt Delete? What Control Alt Reality record?
We're on the same page, man. I think that it's interesting you said it's like a throwback to that old school rave culture because to me this sounds more like a Glitch Mob DJ set to me than a new Glitch Mob album. It's
Right.
everything that the singles were indicating it would be. It's a pretty straightforward drum and bass album with some old school house influence. There's a few decent tracks and some interesting percussive elements on here, as you'd expect from them, but I really couldn't connect with this album in a meaningful way. My standouts were the same as yours. I think The Moment might be my favorite, but I gave this album a 5 as well. I couldn't really get into it. And I don't know if it's because I couldn't separate myself from their other work, but I think even when I tried to listen to it on its own, I could appreciate the work that they put into it, but I'm still just not connecting with it, if that makes sense.
Oh, it totally makes sense, man. I mean, I will never forget the first time I heard both Drink the Sea and Love, Death, Immortality. Both of those records are just absolutely insane, man. Like
Mhm.
they are really special pieces of music, and I really liked See Without Eyes. I own that record, and yeah, this just maybe was a an experiment, and maybe it'll grow on me. I just don't like the chipmunk vocals, and I kind of never have. And if that does it for some people, then it'll do it for you on this one because it is. Again, I liked it. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
Man. What'd you rate it? Did you give it a score?
I gave it a 5, as
Oh,
the
great.
same as you. I just
Great.
think that it's crazy that if somebody would have told us like late last year, hey, Glitch Mob and Odessa are going to release new albums next year, and they're not even going to be in your like 10 favorite EDM albums of the year, I wouldn't believe it. It's shocking.
It
It's
really is.
crazy.
It really is, man. I have seen both Odessa and the Glitch Mob live. Don't let these albums stop you from seeing them live because they are great performers, both of them individually.
I agree. Yeah, you should never let one album you don't love make you stop being a fan of an artist altogether.
I think that the Glitch Mob in 2013, 2014 was one of the straight up craziest laser shows I think I've ever seen in my life, man.
Yeah, dude, I remember that was about the time Coachella was like really hitting that commercial saturation point.
Yep.
And I remember a lot of people from like the town I'm from in NorCal finally like trekking to there. And these are not EDM people at all. And I remember almost all of their posts afterwards were just about how insane the Glitch Mob was. And I was like, man, going into that blind had to have been a crazy experience.
Right? Like,
Is that a gong? Like, what the fuck?
what? What? They're
All right, man. You ready to talk about this new Honey Dijon album?
Yes, I am ready to talk about an album that I
Talk about
scored
it, man.
higher than a 5.
Yes, me too, man. This is her new album, Black Girl Magic, and this album is a lot of fun, man. It's a
Yes.
pure disco house album that delivers on the same level as a Disclosure or S.G. Lewis album. She did a phenomenal job producing these songs and curating the vocalist for each one. She establishes a sound really early on in this album and maintains it throughout. It's a credit to her next level sequencing that it feels as much like a Honey Dijon DJ mix as it does an album of new music.
Yes. Thank you.
There's a lot of incredible collaborations on here, but my favorites include the ones with Channel Tress and Hattie George.
Mhm.
I'm giving this one a 7, man. And my standout is a toss up between Love Me Like You Do, Show Me Some Love, and In the Club. How did you feel about this one?
I think it's a breath of fresh air, man. Especially
yeah.
after listening to two Brockhampton and a Glitch Mob record that I did not like. I just said I liked it. Look, man, this is some just really great house music, and I knew that that's what we were going to hear. That's why when you asked me last week what I was most excited for, I was like, "Yep, that's going to be Honey Dijon, man."
Yeah.
Honey Dijon made a dance record that's based on samples, old school piano chops, old school drums and percussion. The subdued 4/4 kick on the intro that bleeds into Love is a State of Mind is just fucking awesome, man.
Yeah.
As soon as I got into as soon as I got to It's Quiet Now, I realized that this is just going to be old school Chicago bangers, which is again why I was so excited for it last week. That's exactly what we got, man. We got an album full of really
Yep.
good Chicago house music fucking bangers. The 303 at the end of Quiet Now is just tasteful. Like you said, she curated vocals perfectly. I give this an 8, man. I really, really, really enjoyed this, dude. It was a DJ set. I'm not even sure it's definitely an album, but you know what I'm saying? Like it
It's
feels
an
much
album and a DJ mix.
feels
It's both.
much more like a mix to me. And Show Me Some Love is I like you in the club was really good. So it's Show Me Some Love or the club.
Gotcha. Yeah, I thought In the Club was the best like album cut for sure.
Yeah.
All right, man. Shout out Honey Dijon. Great album.
Yep.
Next up, we got a new one from Dave East called Book of David. Man, Davey is just, he's always been really hit or miss with me, and this one is a miss for me. It feels like a step down in quality from Hoffa and How Did I Get Here? Don't get me wrong, he does his thing on here, but that's literally all he does on here. If you like Dave East, you'll probably like this, but this is not the type of project that's going to bring in any new fans or be a favorite amongst any of your already existing fans, making me wonder, what's the point? I get that it's a mixtape, but it's hard to tell the difference between a Dave East album and a mixtape. And it shouldn't be. If you do it right, Wayne mastered having completely different feels between mixtapes and albums in the mid 2000s by realizing what productions he considered album worthy and which ones he didn't. He still rapped over everything. He just knew how to categorize it and market it. And this just feels like Dave East doing the Dave East flow over a bunch of lazy soul samples and DJ drama producer tags. And I know doing a DJ drama tape is a big thing for a lot of rappers, so I'm hoping this experience means more to him than this album means to me. I'm giving this one a 5. My standout is Gangsta, but my standout could be any song because they all sound the same to me. How did you feel about this one?
I really liked this album, man.
Ooh, hit me. I'll break it down, man. I want to hear.
I mean, I didn't even write too many notes because there's not much to write about. But I don't know, man. I just think that his flow on all, I mean, his flow is the same on all of these tracks. But what he was talking about, having it be a DJ drama mixtape, having it just be this, I really liked, what was it? It's on, I think it's. He's got this. He's got like cars beeping. I forget the track. I didn't write it down. He's got cars honking their horns, and then you've got these like choir voices going, "Miss me with that bullshit." I was just like, yeah, that's it, man. Yeah, man. I liked Gangsta. I liked Prison Yard. It's gangster rap, man. It's New York gangster rap, and I think I'm always just gonna have a soft spot for it. I gave it a 7.
For sure.
I really enjoyed it. I've come to enjoy DJ drama. I think back when
We eat French vanilla ice cream.
we all got our toes out. It's I've come to enjoy DJ drama, man. I don't particularly like the Gangsta Grills tag, but I like it when drama comes on and chats with us. It feels like a connection with the audience.
It's fun.
Yeah, it's fun. I liked this more than you. I actually thought that we were going to be on the same page about this one, but we're not, and that's okay. I gave it a 7.
Nah, man, yeah, I gave it a couple spins, and then I went back to like Hoffa. I did P2, Paranoid. I went back to some of my favorites, and I was like, yeah, this just isn't one of my favorites of his by a long shot. But hey, Dave East is not the type of dude to stop working, so I'm sure he will already be hard at work on his next project. I'm excited to hear it. I loved How Did I Get Here? I gave that one a 9 earlier this year.
I know.
So this one, I mean, I like Dave East quite a bit when I like Dave East. This maybe it's the DJ drama thing. I don't know. I'll have to reinvestigate that.
Right.
All right, man. Let's cap this week off with this new one from Soen. It's called Atlantis. And not only did we get this new album, you made a playlist putting all of the original versions of these songs before or after the new versions of it. I think we should throw that playlist link in these show notes because
Okay.
I found that really fun to go through the album that way.
I was actually, that was going to be my first question. Did you do that?
Yeah, yeah, I did that actually before listening to the album. I felt like the sequencing on this album didn't really matter because these are just
Right.
alternative versions of songs, you know? I
Right.
wouldn't really think of like trying to listen to each song going into the next as it's like that type of art. But yeah, man, I found that playlist really helpful, and that was my first exposure to a lot of their original music because we just started with covering these
Right.
songs. And we might have actually started with Trials, which is the only original song on
Right.
here,
Exactly.
confusingly. But yeah, tell me your thoughts on this one, man, as somebody who has been a fan of this artist or this group of artists for a while.
So yeah, I've been a fan of theirs since I think late last year. Just kind of exploring a lot of their music, and yeah, man, this is like you said, it new versions of their songs, except for Snuff, which is a cover, and Trials, which is I think the only original on this, recorded live in a studio with an 8-piece orchestra. I you know, it's different, and I think it's done very well. I will say at this point that I really do like the original versions of these songs a little better, except for the Snuff cover. I actually think I like that one better than Slipknot's original version. Look, man, I think that it is incredibly impressive for a prog metal band because you listen to the original music,
Hmm.
they can go hard in certain aspects, and
Yeah.
homie has a fucking awesome voice, and to kind of hear them purposefully slow things down while also kind of keeping the same level of kind of that same level of production value, I think is both admirable and impressive to want to do that to your music, especially when it is something that's so different from what you currently do. I think that it was really cool, man. I'm not sure we should grade it. I gave it a 7. I did really enjoy it. I thought that it was unique. I thought that it was awesome. I love the fucking strings. Savia is my standout of this because of that fucking that with the violin. Fuck,
Hmm.
dude. I was like,
Yep.
yeah, let's go. Let's do that again. I think the first time I heard that track, I was like, replay. Let me do that one real quick. I got to do that one again.
Love it.
What did you think about this one, man? And what did you think of their original music now that you had a chance to explore it a tiny bit?
Yeah, I liked both. Having just seen Amine live with the Portland Symphony, I really appreciate all of the dramatic orchestral reinterpretations of these songs.
Yes.
And like I said, I thank you for making the playlist and giving me the chance to hear the original version before the Atlantis version, because being able to hear how they added layers to each song made me appreciate things I might not have if I hadn't heard the original version first. My favorite moments on this album are some of the ones we've already talked about: the Slipknot cover of Snuff, the one original song on the album Trials. Of the stuff we hadn't heard though, the new version of Monarch I think was probably my favorite.
Yes.
I don't know how much I'll return to this, but I did really enjoy it, and I enjoyed hearing Imperial for the first time as well. I did not rate this one either, but yeah, I think Trials is my standout, which is interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very good song. I think that this was more. They actually are selling the DVD for the live studio
Oh,
version of this.
sick.
So I think that this album being dropped as I think it's one of their first live albums, and I think that was kind of the point. I think they really wanted to sell the experience of here is this live studio version of a bunch of our music as a live show, and instead of just recording one of their live shows, you know. So I think that
Yeah.
that was more the point of this. I don't think that this is going to get many streams from longtime fans, except for a couple of listens here and there. I will say I think I listened to this whole thing front to back like 7 or 8 times. So, but I think that's done. I think I'm done with it. I think I'm just going to keep going back to their. I think it's Cognitive is my favorite album of theirs since 2012 or from 2012. And yeah, I really like this band, and I hope we get new original music from them in their regular style, their traditional style rather. And yeah, I thought it was fun to hear all these reinterpretations. So I'm glad you
I
got to
did
hear
as
them.
well. Yeah, we don't get albums like this very often. It was fun to break down, and I do look forward to breaking down some new music from them, hopefully, as well.
Yeah.
That is it for this week. Thank you all for joining us. You can join us next week for our last regular episode of the year before we get into our albums of the year episodes. Next week, we'll be breaking down the new Stormzy album, as well as some albums we did not get to talk about earlier this year. We will see you all then. Peace.
Peace.